Mesopotamia, the civilization that invented everything. Before Rome ever existed, before Greece rose to glory, before the pharaohs built their pyramids, there was a land between two great rivers, a land of red soil and vast open skies, drinking from the Tigris and the Euphrates. On this land, 7,000 years ago, a man sat, a man just like you. He looked around at the chaos surrounding him, and he made one decision: to change the world. He had no computer, he had no book, he did not even have an alphabet, yet he invented all of these things from nothing. This man was no prophet and no god. He was an ordinary Sumerian living in a city called Uruk in the region we know today as Iraq. And what he and his people built over 7,000 years will shock you, because you are using their inventions right now, at this very moment. As you watch this video, this is the story of Mesopotamia, the mother of all civilizations, the origin of everything you know. Mesopotamia was born more than 7,000 years ago in what is now southern Iraq. It began with the Sumerians, then came the Akkadians, followed by the Babylonians, and later the Assyrians. Each civilization built upon the last, and each added a new layer of science, art, and law. These people did not simply live, they invented. They invented things we use every single day, without ever realizing where those things came from. The inventions. Cuneiform writing. The first invention that changed humanity forever, writing. 5,000 years ago, the Sumerians took a piece of wet clay and began pressing wedge-shaped marks into it with a reed stylus. These marks became symbols. These symbols became a language. And this language became history itself. Without this single invention, we would know nothing about our ancestors, nothing about where we came from or who we were. The second greatest invention, the wheel. 5,500 years ago, the Sumerians discovered that a circle could move. It began as a tool for pottery and transportation, then spread to transform warfare, trade, and civilization as a whole. Every car, every bicycle, and every aircraft in the world today traces its origins back to that single moment in Mesopotamia. The Code of Hammurabi, the first law. The third invention that stunned the world, law. The Babylonian king Hammurabi wrote the first comprehensive legal code in human history. 288 laws designed to organize society, protect the weak, and punish the unjust. This was written 3,800 years ago. Every constitution and every rule of law that exists in the world today traces its roots back to this one man. Astronomy and the calendar. The Sumerians were the first to study the sky with the eyes of scientists. They were the first to map the stars and name the constellations. The first to invent a lunar calendar with 12 months. The first to divide the day into 24 hours, and the hour into 60 minutes. Yes, the clock you look at right now is a Sumerian invention. Irrigation and organized agriculture. How do you grow crops in a desert? The Sumerians knew the answer. They invented irrigation systems and water canals that carried the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates to every field. This invention fed millions of human beings and transformed the desert into paradise. Modern organized agriculture began right here. Mathematics and the number system. Mathematics? The Sumerians invented it. They used a number system based on 60, the very same system we use today in our clocks, our angles, and our geographic coordinates. They understood addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and even square roots. The scientists of today owe everything to them: medicine and pharmacy. The oldest medical prescription ever found in history came from Mesopotamia. 4,000 years ago, Sumerian physicians were prescribing herbs and treatments for their patients. They understood surgery, they understood disease, and they understood that the human body could be healed. The roots of modern medicine grow from this very land, the ziggurat and urban architecture. The Sumerians built the first organized cities in human history, complete with streets, homes, and temples. At the heart of every city stood the ziggurat, a massive stepped pyramid reaching toward the sky. Some ziggurats rose to heights of more than 30 meters. The Sumerians believed these structures were bridges between the earth and the heavens. Money and trade. The Sumerians invented money 5,000 years ago. They used silver as a standardized currency measured by weight. They also invented receipts and commercial contracts. Everything we know as modern trade and commerce began with them. The sail and navigation. They invented the sail 6,000 years ago, the first people to harness the power of wind for travel along rivers. This simple invention opened the doors of trade between civilizations and made the world a smaller, more connected place. Pottery and ceramics. 7,000 years ago, they created the first pottery using the potter's wheel. Pottery was not merely a vessel. It was a revolution in the storage and transportation of food and water. It permanently changed the way human beings preserved and carried the essentials of life. Textiles and clothing. They invented organized weaving and the clothing industry. They learned how to dye fabrics in a wide range of colors. The fashion industry and the luxury textiles we know today began in the markets of Uruk and Babylon. Glass. The Sumerians were the first to discover glass 5,000 years ago. It began as an accidental byproduct of pottery kilns and evolved into a complete industry. Every window and every glass bottle in the world today traces its origin back to this discovery. Advanced mathematics, algebra. Algebra was invented by the Babylonians. They solved quadratic equations 4,000 years ago. They understood what we now call the Pythagorean theorem, a full 1,000 years before Pythagoras himself was born. The mathematics behind modern engineering and architecture all traces back to them. Music and musical instruments. Archaeologists discovered in the royal tombs of Ur the oldest musical instrument in the world, the Sumerian lyre, 4,500 years old. The Sumerians wrote the first song in human history. The music you listen to today began here. Education and schools. They invented the school. Its Sumerian name was Adaba, meaning the house of tablets. It had students, teachers, and examinations. 4,500 years ago. Every school and every university in the world today traces its origins back to this invention. Mythology and organized religion. The Sumerians were the first to organize religion and commit mythology to writing. The Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest written story in the history of humanity. It speaks of creation, of a great flood, and of a man's search for immortality. You will find within it striking similarities to religious stories that came thousands of years later. The agricultural plow. They invented the agricultural cedar plow 6,000 years ago. They also wrote the first farming manual in history, explaining in detail how to plant and harvest crops. Modern agriculture, with all of its technology, traces its foundations back to these ancient writings. Fermentation and beer. The oldest beer recipe in the world was written in Sumerian, 5,000 years ago. The Sumerians discovered fermentation and brewing, and perhaps most surprisingly, beer was actually part of the wages paid to the workers who built the great ziggurats, the cylinder seal. They invented the first official signature in history, the cylinder seal. Every person had their own unique seal, which they would roll across wet clay to prove their identity and authorize transactions. This is the direct ancestor of the digital signature you use today. Maps and cartography. The oldest map of the world was found in Babylon, dating back 2,500 years. The Babylonians drew the earth and identified the locations of cities, rivers, and mountains. Every map and every GPS device in use today traces its origins back to this idea. Meteorology and weather science. The Babylonians were the first to record and document weather phenomena. They predicted rainfall and storms by carefully observing the stars and cloud formations. This is the true origin of the modern science of meteorology. Standardized weights and measurements. They invented the first unified system of weights and measurements, the Sumerian shekel. A unit of weight equal to approximately 8 grams was the world's first standardized measure. Without this invention, there would be no trade, no economy, and no organized construction. Every kilogram you purchase today traces back to this invention. Literature and poetry. The Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest work of literature in human history, written 4,500 years ago. It tells the story of a king who searches for eternal life, a story containing a great flood remarkably similar to the story of Noah, a deep friendship, love, and the universal fear of death. Every novel and every film made today owes its existence to this epic. Bridges and civil engineering. The Babylonians built the first stone bridge over the Euphrates River in Babylon. It stretched 125 meters in length and was completed 2,500 years ago. Every bridge in the world today uses engineering principles that were first established by the builders of ancient Babylon. 7,000 years have passed, and this land has never stopped speaking. Every time you look at your watch, remember the Sumerians. Every time you read a word, remember the Sumerians. Every time you cross a bridge, or hear music, or pay for something, or look up at the stars, remember, a human being sat on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates thousands of years ago and thought, and created, and changed the world. Mesopotamia did not die. It lives inside you. In every thought you think, in every step you take, in every invention you use, this is not a civilization that ended. This is a civilization that never stopped building you.